Hey there, this is Tom with the Diogenes Lamp podcast. I appreciate you listening in, and most importantly, I hope you enjoy what you hear. Before we start with today's episode, I'm going to ask you for a small favor. Believe it or not, history podcasts, especially in their early stages, tend not to be cash cows. Shocker, I know. I too was blindsided by this news. Now, I didn't go into this for the money, I think that much is obvious. But unfortunately, books, research materials, and equipment aren't free. Please, go to patreon.com/Diogenes Lamp Podcast, and for less than the price of a coffee once a month, you can become a member and get access to bonus episodes, recommended reading lists and documentaries, shout-outs, and anything else we'll offer in the future as this project grows. If you are especially broke, hey, I get it, but please, make sure to give us a 5-star review when you listen to us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, and subscribe to the pod on your preferred podcast listening medium. Your support is appreciated, and more importantly, it is needed in order to keep this operation going. On that note, I hope you have a great day, and now back to the show. Stay golden, pony boy. I'm gonna read you something. It's from a favorite book of mine. You have no choice. You have no choice. Thank you. I appreciate the illusion that you give of choice, but no, I'm joking. Of course, you always have choice. It's like I always joked with the one other, my main co-host, Basil. I was like, I've locked you in a room, tied you to a chair, and forced you to listen to Greek history with me for hours. So
I've been chained to a radiator for the last hour. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, that's right. It puts the lotion on its skin and listens to me talk about World War II Greek history. Jeez, this is going dark quick. Let's cut it off now. This is from a favorite book of mine, Captain Corelli's Mandolin. Familiar with the movie? Nicolas Cage. Yeah. He's a really great actor, Nicolas Cage, if you haven't noticed.
I'm sorry. Well, it depends very much on the movie. There's an entire Community episode about that. I don't know if you're a big Dan
Oh, really?
Harmon
I know.
fan,
I'm familiar with the show Community.
Yeah.
I haven't watched it, but yeah. There's a lot of debate up for that, whether he's actually a good actor or not, but I feel like when you cast him, it doesn't matter what movie it is. Nicolas Cage transcends to just be Nicolas Cage within the movie, if that makes sense.
Oh, no, it does 110%. We've seen everything from Con Air to Moonstruck.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's Nicolas Cage in there. It's not anyone else.
Nope. 110%.
They might as well
Nicolas
just be
Cage.
like, the character is Nicolas Cage, acted by Nicolas Cage.
Nicolas Cage.
So the book is like 1,000 times better than the movie, of course. So I'll just read this little tidbit. Since I encountered death, met death on every mountain path, conversed with death in my sleep, wrestled with death in the snow, gambled at dice with death, I have come to the conclusion that death is not an enemy, but a brother. Death is a beautiful naked man who looks like Apollo, and he is not satisfied with those who wither away in old age. Death is a perfectionist. And again, that's Captain Corelli's Mandolin. Welcome to the podcast, everyone. Again, Diogenes Lamp Podcast. Episode 17, Masochists and Spaghetti Eaters, Part 2. Thanks again for being here with us, Jess. Really appreciate you making the time.
Absolutely. I'm always happy to be here.
Yeah, and happy you're feeling better, too. I know
Thank you.
Stuff's going around. Where we left off last, chronologically, we were in the summer of 1941, and we had gotten a bit more acquainted with terror, looting, inflation, and starvation that hallmarked the new Hellenic state. Today, we're going to continue our look at this starvation and terror and see how societies tend to respond to such conditions, which tends to be not great. Even so, the spirit of resistance couldn't be stifled. one of the more famous examples of this overt show of resistance was entirely symbolic, but really pissed off the Germans. On the night of May 30th, the same day it was announced that Crete had officially fallen, two teenage kids, Manolis Glezos and Apostolos Santas, climbed up the rocky Acropolis, scaled the 50-foot flagpole, armed with just a lantern and a pocket knife, took down the swastika flag, and cut it to pieces. The next morning, the Athenians woke up to seeing the Greek flag on the Acropolis, which for a brief moment made it feel like the Germans had never really come to town. This, of course, was brief, and by 11 a.m., it had been fixed. An announcement was made that the people responsible for this revolting act were sentenced to death in absentia, and the flag-like situation set off a comical competition, actually, between the Italians and the Nazis as to who could put a bigger flag back up on the Acropolis. Both the flags were shredded to shit by the wind because it's Greece, and it's incredibly windy. I don't know if you've ever been to Greece, Jess. It's so windy. It's so windy.
I have. It's super windy. I grew up in a place it's that kind of windy. So it's really interesting to have gone there because I did not expect that. So it was a fun, like, what?
So windy, dude. Literally, unless you're like down by Kalamata and like down in like Laconia, like in that area down there, and you still get some wind, but it's just so windy. So you get the idea.
But I also love that this big dick competition was just absolutely in vain. That's my favorite thing about when this happens between fascists. It just
my flag's bigger. No, my flag's bigger.
Flag's bigger.
Yeah, it's so ridiculous, but it's also like exactly what you would expect in this situation. It's like
110%. It's spot on. Right? It is absolutely. Yeah.
For sure. So, like, it's a symbolic act of defiance, but defiance, ballsy, to say the least. So in response to the kidnapping and disappearance of that flag, an additional punitive 10 p.m. curfew was enacted. So, the Germans took it personally, of course. Other small acts of resistance were more comedic in nature. So this is a good story. So there's a shoe shiner in Athens, and he saw an Italian carabinieri. I think I'm saying that right. Which carabinieri were like the Italian gendarme. So like Greece had the horofilaki, like we talked about episode 3 or whatever. That was the Italian equivalent was the carabinieri. Mamma mia, pizzeria. My Italian's very bad. So, anyways, the shoe shiner sees the carabinieri, and of course, we talked about how much the Greeks hated the Italians at the start. Later, they'll hate the Germans more, but at the start of the occupation, they really hated the Italians. And he decides, I'm going to fuck with this guy a little bit today. All right. So he yells, Aera, which I don't know if you know Aera. We talked about way back in one of the previous episodes. Aera is like a Greek war cry. It means air in Greek, literally.
Okay.
It's a Greek word for air. So if you're charging, you yell, Aera,
Okay.
So he yells this at the carabinieri. The shoe shiner does. Then he turns around and runs, of course, because he's like, oh shit, right? And right when the carabinieri has the shoe shiner cornered, the shoe shiner turns back around, he puts his hand up in the air and he yells, Bella Grecia, which Bella Grecia was what the surrendering Italians were yelling to the Greeks when they were surrendering up in Epirus. Right? Bella Grecia, beautiful Greece, obviously.
Oh, okay. That's a pretty good zinger.
Yeah, for sure.
Pretty good.
For sure. It's a good one. So, like, think of it this way. Like, if you were surrendering to a foreign person and you were, like, had invaded their territory, you were clearly like, oh, this is bad. What do I got to say to, like, if you were invading, I don't know. If you were an Italian invading Greece, right, you'd be like, I love souvlaki. Yay, don't kill me, please. Right?
Yes.
You're invading Germany and you're just surrounded by a bunch of Germans. You'd be like, I love Wiener Schnitzel.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Goddamn, Lederhosen are like the shit.
Do you remember in Saving Private Ryan? the scene at the very end where there's the one German Nazi soldier and he's like just saying all the shit he knows in English, American
Oh,
English. I forgot
yes.
exactly what he was saying, but before he shoots him,
Yeah.
like that. Yeah.
That fun stuff.
So,
Yeah.
anyways, something else I want to talk to you about. The titled episode, Masochists and the Spaghetti Eaters. Spaghetti Eaters specifically is referring to what the Greeks called the Italians.
Oh, yeah. I looked that up. Don't
Oh, you
worry.
did?
Yeah.
You got it then. Yeah, the
I got it.
macaronades, which is like
Yeah.
macaronada, macaroni, spaghetti, pasta. That's all you guys do. Is you just eat pasta. You're a bunch of spaghetti
Yeah.
eaters.
Yep. I looked that up before I went ahead and tied myself to. I mean, don't get me wrong. I thought it was very funny. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, before I'm not like horrific about the Italians, even though that might be like what I call them privately. Like, oh, I call them the spaghettis, the mozzarella,
The
because it
spaghettis.
drives me nuts when you go to like anywhere that Italians are and they suddenly decide they want to be real Italians and do the mozzarella. Right? Like, oh
Oh,
my
forget
God, you were
about it.
just from Brooklyn 2.5 seconds ago. Calm down.
You are from the suburbs of Metro Detroit. You are not.
You were
I've
not.
never
Like,
heard you say
don't.
any Italian in your life, and now you suddenly.
And now you're ordering spaghetti and mozzarella. Like, calm down.
I can't. I
Yeah.
can't say too much though because as a Greek American, they probably feel sometimes the same way. I'd like to. This is what I will say is I feel like Italian Americans have definitely assimilated within like one generation, or like full blown assimilated completely. Greek Americans, I feel like we have one generation on them before we like fully assimilate. I'd say.
Here's the other thing. It's one thing because Italian has made its way into like colloquial English far more than Greek has.
That's yes,
So
yes,
I'm not walking around saying like Greek words like I know how to pronounce any of them. I don't, outside of the
right,
context of history. But I can't
right.
say mozzarella, like, right? But I'm not going to say it with an Italian accent because it's a commonized word in the English language. I guess that's what like drives me nuts about it.
Yeah. No, I get
But I
that.
will slap
I get that.
somebody that says gyro, you know, instead of a euro, right? Like,
Slappable
because
offense.
I feel like that's been Americanized enough that it should be, and it's a pretty common sandwich that I can get at any deli in downtown Atlanta. So, you know,
Really? Wow.
yeah,
We don't even. I mean,
it's
unless you go like to the Greek places, it's not something you get. And I don't eat. I don't eat. I would never eat a gyro out because it's
for
like dog food.
some reason. Now they love that lumping that veal and lamb together and shaving that shit down here. They love it.
Yeah, but do they actually like make it, or is it the prepackaged? Like it's the prepackaged stuff is what you're eating.
Oh
You
no,
think
it's coming from they like they shave it down here actually in butchers like
I know,
markets.
but
Like it's a
they
thing.
shave it, but like how do they make it? Because you're
No,
supposed to
they're
take
making it.
individual pieces of pork and stack,
Mhm.
stack, stack, stack. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's legit then.
Yeah.
That's a legit gyro.
Yeah.
Props. Because you
I
don't see
wouldn't
I
eat
mean,
a bad one. Ew.
you'd be
This is
surprised.
not the
Most
local fucking fair, sir. I'm not
most
gonna eat
most
fair food.
Americans do eat bad gyro. They dog food gyro. I call
Well,
it
I
dog
know
food because
I'm not gonna do that, but I also
pre-processed.
like make my meatballs like with veal, you know? Like I'm not gonna eat
Holy
trash food.
shit. That sounds good. You and my wife, good cooks. So, there were other small acts like of defiance as well. So, Aera, Aera, like we talked about, the former heroic war cry yelled during charges, then started showing up on walls in Athens and across Greece as graffiti. But now Aera had turned into an acronym, meaning Anglia, England, Hellas, Greece, Rossiya, Russia, and Ameriki, America. right? So aera, A-E-R-A.
That's
Ohi,
pretty darn clever right there. I love that. That it is both a
yeah,
word that already existed as a war cry and now it's an ally war cry. Love that.
like a perfect one too.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And then, we had Ohi, O-X-I, is how like it's spelled kind of in English script. Not that you can really spell it or translate in English script, but whatever, you get the idea. Ohi, or Greek for no, which is of course what Metaxas said to Mussolini. No, Ohi Day, national holiday, October 28th, Greece, yada yada. That started showing up as graffiti all throughout occupied cities in Greece as well. Even prostitutes joined in on the resistance by refusing to have sex with German or Italian soldiers. An act that, mind you, cost them a lot because, like they would pay and everyone was starving to death. So yeah, you have something you want
I
to say about
love
this?
I love a good sex workers resistance.
Oh
And I
yeah,
love it from I love it from the Mediterranean countries too, because they're so good at it, like throughout history, especially Greek women. Like, go
from
fuck
ancient
yourself.
times,
Literally.
the the one, yeah, literally, go fuck yourself. The one play, what was it, Lysastra during the Peloponnesian War?
Hmm.
It's a You know what I'm talking about. I forgot the exact name of it, but it has to do that where with Athenian and the Spartan women go on a sex strike to stop the
They
Athenians and the
go on a
Spartans.
sex strike to literally tell men to go fuck themselves until yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's a long standing tradition, being my point. Thank you for taking the
Yes.
words right out of my mouth. I wasn't even going to bring that up.
So the well-known Greek daily newspaper Kathimerini, which is a newspaper to this day, of course, had given even a small tribute to these ladies some decades later, saying, and quote, "I do not know if any of these noble Greek women still survive, but if they do, I want them to know that history has not forgotten them." End quote. Respect.
Mass respect. Get it,
That's
ladies.
respect for sure. Turns out being a Nazi makes you unfuckable. the set By the end of June, the Greeks were starting to get acquainted with the other side of the Germans. Not just the greedy, cheap, steal everything side. They were also starting to get a taste of the masochistic side of the Germans. The kill and burn anything or anyone that doesn't do exactly what we want side of the Germans. We are talking, of course, about reprisals and collective punishment, which will soon enough become another hallmark of the German occupation, complementing starvation, the other touchstone of the occupation that we already know about. In Crete, where a massive amount of the civilian population joined in resisting the invasion of the island, as we had the 2 episodes on the Battle of Crete, the reprisals started as soon as they could. At the start of June, just a week after the island had been expunged of any Allied resistance, the German general Kurt Student, who we met last episode, again, Battle of Crete, give it a listen, began ordering entire villages to be burned down and have their populations executed. The justification being not just that villagers had taken part in battle and thus were not protected under any Geneva Conventions because they were no longer deemed as non combatants, but also because Student came to the conclusion that German soldiers had been tortured and their bodies mutilated by the Cretan population. This, of course, is probably just a bullshit pretext for the actions that were carried out. I say bullshit because Germans were, of course, not tortured, nor were the bodies of slain German soldiers mutilated, nor are there any resources or texts or firsthand accounts supporting this that villagers actually took the time to mutilate German bodies after they were killed. It just so happens, though, that when a Cretan villager slams a pickaxe directly into your face or crushes your head with a rock, your face and or head may appear mutilated or crushed. Um, you know, so even though mutilation was not the goal, the post result of the villagers, taking the courtesy to kill German paratroopers was dead Germans with mutilated and messed up bodies and faces, due to being killed in many instances by primitive weapons. So, one of the first examples of this Germanic retribution was the burning of Kandanos, and by burning of Kandanos, that's the name of the village, I mean the entire village razed to the ground, along with 3 other villages that were also set ablaze. 180 men from Kandanos and a few neighboring villages were rounded up and shot. And on August 1st, just a month or so after that village was burned, the village of Skines was destroyed as well, and another 150 or so people were executed. And this sadistic mode of ruling wasn't just dispensed in Crete. These draconian laws were enforced all throughout Greece, as just within the first week of the occupation, 3 young men in Athens were condemned to death for displaying the Greek flag, another 3 for carrying arms, and in August, a man was condemned to death for helping Allied prisoners escape. So you get the idea. It's not just one place, it's anywhere, of course.
And it's not just, it's important to not just bullet, yes, about a quarter of this is ethnic cleansing, and then the other 3/4 is fighting resistance groups, because I just do want to say, like, some of the greatest resistance movement in all of the Second World War occurs in Greece, but you will get to that. But it's important to understand, like, the Germans did not crack down maybe as hard on Vichy France, because as we were talking about in the last episode, that they tend to set up puppet regimes where they respect populations. But you don't see that same cracking down in, say, Vichy France that you see in Greece. And that reason is because of
the resistance,
the very resistant spirit of the Greek people. Very.
Its story, I mean, the Greek resistance, like you're saying, is held up as a standard, you know what I mean? It's one of the most successful examples. Comes at a great cost, though, like you're saying, right? Like, it's not, the occupying forces don't just stand there and do nothing, right? It doesn't work like that.
But before everybody gets really down and thinks that, oh, this is the end of the line, like, the Greeks are going to get theirs, guys. Don't worry. It's coming. Like, you're just not hearing that side yet. We're talking about the Germans for now.
Yeah, and that's really the big thing, right? Is like this episode and the previous one is really like the backdrop of when we start to get into everything else. So, actually, I'm literally just finishing up the episode on the SOE.
We're just really talking about what the occupation looked like.
Exactly.
But just before any listeners are like, well, actually, no, you're getting to that. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah. I have about 20 to 30 more episodes, guys. This is going to be a while. It's if you thought this series, like, we're at 1941-ish right now. You know what I mean? Like, the Civil War really ends, like, define when it ends, but, like, I don't know, whatever, 48, 49, 50, around there, if you want to really get into it.
49 is the accepted historiography point.
That's like the big thing. The Battle of Vitsia Grama or whatever, and up in the mountains in northern Greece is like the big hallmark or whatever. But that's what I mean. We're still have 8 years, guys. So we have a while.
We'll
cover it. Don't worry. Yeah. So moving to northern Greece around Thessaloniki area, just some more examples. The Germans had shot roughly 488 civilian hostages and seized another 164 just in the month of October. And then also burned 2 villages. So
yeah, and brutal. When we say they burned villages, we mean like in the Roman sense, like razed to the ground, salted like Carthage.
Yeah. In many cases, villagers weren't allowed to return, like stuff like that. Like, but yes, exactly. And these acts of barbarity, definitely made the Italians look good when compared to the Nazis. They were still considered sore losers and just in general losers, but not like nearly as genocidal as the Germans, at least not to the Greeks. Not to say the Italians were angels, if any occupier could be one, but the actions of the Germans just really made them stand out when in the same room as the Italians. And it wasn't just the starvation, which many Greeks considered deliberate and draconian laws and punishments, that made the Germans absolute dicks. It was that like all facets of life were deteriorating. Rewinding to early May, one of the first things the Germans did was empty the hospitals of wounded Greeks to make way for their own. Right. So instead of saying like, hey, the hospital will be crowded, but we'll share, or even Germans get first priority, but Greeks can still stay in the hospital. They literally emptied the hospitals of injured Greek veterans from the campaign.
So it was just,
and the results.
Everybody's turned out, right? Like, it doesn't matter who.
Yeah.
Bye. If you're not German, bye. Okay.
Everyone except German. Yeah. Yeah. Which is an amazingly dick thing to do. I mean, my God. Right. So, like, the result, as you can imagine, is like the streets flooded with amputees, other injured soldiers, just generally sick and wounded people, part of the population that are just absolutely just dying, literally dying people in the street because can't use the hospitals anymore.
Right.
So, not exactly hearts and minds.
Pretty standard practice for an occupying Nazi force. I mean, it's not that it's a good thing, but for a Nazi force, that's pretty standard operating position.
Yeah. They are Nazis after all, and they tend to do this thing.
Again, they went particularly hard on the Greeks, where you don't normally see Nazi occupying forces do that where they've allowed puppet regime governments. The Greeks are really a standalone, interesting look into, believe it or not, there are whole classes on this, guys, into like Nazi Germany, Nazi Germany, how they occupy, what their puppet regimes look like. The Greeks really are a standalone.
Yeah, fortunately and unfortunately. It's like, like, geez, man. I mean, and again, a big source for this, along with other sources, of course, I'll put in the show notes as always. But like, if you read Inside Hitler's Greece with Mark Mazower, there's all types of other examples too. Like the Nazis required that everyone have their windows shut, even during the day, which in the summer in Greece is brutal. Right? Mm-hmm. Just like tiny things like that. Like if you just wanted to piss off the population, right? Like this is how you would do it.
And try to break it, unfortunately.
Right. And try to break it. Yeah. Mentally and everything else. So as bad as the summer of 1941 was going, with the looting, the famine, and the draconian laws and everything else, everyone knew what was coming. Very few were so naive as to think things were going to get better. And what I'm referring to, of course, is, after summer, what comes? Fall, right? And then after fall comes winter. So what will people do when there are no more figs or oranges, or, those prickly pears, if you're familiar in Greece, growing on trees for people just to pick or rummage or whatever, after all the harvests have been collected. Or when there's no firewood available because the people will either have not enough money to buy any, or simply no more wood will be available. Everyone knew it's going to get way worse. And by the end of the summer of 1941, there were already reports of people eating boiled grass and weeds, which is great.
I mean, what is it? Something like 300,000 alone in Athens that eventually started?
Yeah, by some estimates. It's like...
Yeah, it's really
just in Athens. Yeah.
Just in Athens. That's important to note.
Yeah.
Just in Athens.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna get there. Don't you worry. Which leads us to the next topic I want to touch on, something I didn't mention earlier. We talked earlier, again, about some of the reasons why the food situation was so bleak, but there was another reason or factor that was exacerbating the situation, and that being the Allied blockade of Greece. Enacting a blockade, and you know this, Jess, you're a historian, it's tactic as old as history, right? The Romans did it to Carthage in the Punic Wars. We have the Byzantines, who were, of course, also Romans, I should point out, blockaded Norman-occupied Corfu in 1084, and then the Entente blockaded Germany in World War I. And in war, food and water in many cases are as valuable as bullets and shells.
And unfortunately, the occupied suffer as much as the occupiers. And that is
right. That's the point, right?
That's the point. It's terrible.
It reminds me of when you have a flu and you run a fever, right? Yeah. And your body's purposely just making you feel like shit, but also trying to burn out the... Similar idea, right?
Yep. That's exactly right.
So there are a couple reasons or, strategies, again, behind implementing a blockade. We talked about the food. Everything stems from that. You need food, right? If people are hungry, they're pissed. If people are pissed off, they're more likely to be violent. Violent people are more difficult to manage, and people that are perpetually starving tend to have diminishing health. So like in theory, the scenario was supposed to play out like so. Okay. Oh no, the Allies have blockaded us here in Greece. Now Greece can't import food. This is an inconvenience, as international law states that because we, the Axis powers, are the occupiers, we must provide food for those who were occupying. Right? That's like oh no, that's like the thought, right? In reality, though, all that happened is that the Axis powers did not abide by international law, which is a big shocker there. And instead, the Nazis and Axis powers, as we know, just confiscated all the food they could in order to make sure no German went hungry, regardless of how many Greeks starved to death as a result. Right?
And
Like
that's
they were
why
like,
we tried
we
on
don't care.
at the Hague.
Yeah,
It's
that
like,
was a good
yeah,
one. That was a good one.
that's the reason
Yeah,
why, folks. But like,
shit like
it's
that.
really interesting when you look back at the historiography. If you
Hmm.
don't look at that in a full, like, all the way around kind of way, as in you don't interpret international law and that the occupiers must provide for people. A lot of people go, oh my God, how cruel the Allies were. And no,
Yep, yep,
no.
yep.
Now, there are occasions, like, say, India, where Churchill did not provide that, where we have those problems, and that the Allies
Jeez.
are, guilty of it too. But then again, just to remind everybody, as we seem to be on the brink of several wars, this is why war is so ugly. There aren't really that
2025.
many
Right,
rules. Yeah,
right, right. Absolutely. As we're in the middle of, I mean, pretty much textbook trade war. We're starting one up, anyways,
yeah,
which tends to be a precursor to actual war.
yeah.
Because when you can't fight as much, when you start fighting economically, it starts,
Yeah, ask the
nationalism
Greeks and the
follows.
Turks if they start busting off, if the Balkans don't get involved. Like,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
know
Things are,
there's a textbook, like,
absolutely, absolutely, 100%.
history
So
doesn't repeat itself, it rhymes.
it rhymes, right? Who was that? Ernest
Hmm.
Hemingway? I forgot who or whatever. Not
No,
Hemingway.
it's actually not contributed. This is a fun thing. It's not attributed to anybody. There are several people it's attributed to, but it's just a saying that I always
Uh,
assume we history teachers and
yeah, everyone
historians
says it.
made up. It never occurs in exactly the same way, but it always has a rhyming pattern.
Yep. That's for sure, man. So, in case there were any doubts, by the way, or like uncertainty about, making sure no German went hungry regardless of how many Greeks starved to death, let's hear it from Hermann Goring. Is it Goring? Goring? Again, you're the
Goering.
German
Hermann Goering.
Goring. You're the German speaker here. So, Hermann Goering, who was the Reich Marshal, kind of like the number two-ish guy behind Hitler, give or take, I mean, 2 or 3, whatever. And quote, in all the occupied territories, I see the people living there stuffed full of food, while our own people are going hungry. For God's sake, you haven't been sent there to work for the well being of the peoples entrusted to you, but to get a hold of as much as you can so that the German people can live. I expect you to devote your energies to that. This continual concern for the aliens must come to an end once and for all. I could not care less when you say that people under your administration are dying of hunger. Let them perish so long as no German starves. There you go. It's quite.
Again, just a reminder to everybody, this is the dangers of fascism, and that comes
Yes.
in the form of hyper nationalism, where we
Right.
just
Referring to
go
people as aliens, subhuman. Yeah.
subhuman because they are
Yes.
not of your nation state. That's
Yep.
it, boy. Trust Goering to hit that nail on the head.
Just
Let
told you
me
straight up.
demonstrate to you all. Yeah,
I
doesn't
need
mince
you
words
guys to
about it.
get as fat as possible. Okay. Like, stuff your faces.
The
Yeah. I
Soviet
mean,
Union's
fucking
not
Christ.
going to be easy in the middle of winter, and we don't give a shit about the Greeks in, like, layman
Yeah.
terms.
Yeah.
Is
Geesh.
because, again, to remind everybody, this entire, like, as the Germans see it, they had to come all the way down here because you dared to resist the Italians, even though they hate the
Right.
Italians in their own way. but they
Yeah, they
feel like
also are
they've
very
had to
pissed off
calm
at the
down. Yeah, they're
Italians.
super pissed off at
They
the
also don't like the
Italians.
Italians. No one really likes
No,
the Italians in World War II. Hitler doesn't,
no,
especially. No one does.
not even Franco does. Which is
Oh
just
yeah, Franco. I
better,
forgot
right?
about the whole thing where he went to Spain and poured so much resources into, and then Franco told him to fuck off at the end of it, and
Fuck
like
off.
completely.
That didn't even work
That's
out for him.
hilarious.
Like literally everybody hated the
Oh
Italians at this
god.
point in history. But it's
Yeah.
so important, like as far as the Germans see this, that it somehow, even though they may respect the Greek peoples in terms of their history, they're blaming them for having to take 5 weeks off from the Soviet invasion and
Right.
come down here. So you bet they're going to take everything they can like walk away with if it's not nailed
Oh
to the
yeah.
floor.
Absolutely. Or that they can eat.
Or that they can eat, again, the Soviets owe the Greeks a real thank you.
Yeah.
So it
Yeah.
worked out in their favor.
Oh yeah. Yeah, big time. So, when you're an administrator of a state or an area under a blockade that was already suffering from a food shortage, you need to figure out a way to make do with what you have. And that usually results in enacting rations, as a means to like limit food consumption and make things last. Think of like the medieval siege type stuff you see in movies, right? Also old as time. But if, rations don't meet a certain threshold, then a ration really just turns into a starvation diet. And that's pretty much what had happened. The average Joe, or in this case, we'll call it the average Panayotis or average Maria, okay, needs somewhere around. This is what I was able to get on Google, okay? So if anyone knows the exact numbers, please like drop it, send it to the message on the gram or whatever. 300 to 500 grams of bread daily to survive. Roughly 300 on the low side, 500 on the high side. By the end of June, that number had fallen to less than 200 grams. And by November, that number had fallen to less than 100 grams a day. Obviously, this is bad. So, like, if bread ration was your only source of food, then you would probably be dead in less than like 4 to 6 months, maybe less. And also keep in mind, if you're in either extreme cold or extreme heat, or working, or moving, or stressed out, you starve quicker. You're starving, you're more likely to get sick, to get the flu, to get TB, tuberculosis, right? Or whatever, if you're working or doing anything that requires physical activity while starving. Like, you will get run down, you'll get sick, eventually you'll just die. You have anything you want to say on that right now? You have anything to contribute? Do you know the number? Do you know the starvation wages,
I
Jess?
do
Are you
not know
familiar?
the starvation
Shame on
wages.
you for not knowing the
I know.
starvation wage.
This is why I always say I'm not a rivet counter. I'm not good at the little bitty tiny things. I'm looking at the whole
Yeah.
picture. I
It's
don't know
funny
the
because
starvation wages. But like another
I
thing to
tried Googling it.
consider
I couldn't find it.
is
Go ahead.
people growing the food, they're on these same rations. So even though
Right. They're
there is
also
still
they're also
agriculture
dying.
going on, this is not a mechanized state.
Right.
They're
They're not
also
much better
dying.
than the
They're
people in
also
Athens.
starving, and they're moving
Yep.
their product by donkeys and whatever else. And guess what? When that food
Right.
shortage comes up, they're eating whatever is available. So now you
Yeah.
can't move product at all to any kind of city
Right.
center or anything outside. The only
Yeah.
movement comes through the Germans and black market means. So
Right.
it
Right.
gets
Like we talked about.
worse.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, like, other organizations try to plug the caloric gap, let's say, in order to prevent the impending mass starvation. We're talking about like Red Cross, French nuns, that kind of thing, setting up soup kitchens here and there. But obviously, it's not going to be enough. So, as we'll see in the fall and winter and into the spring of 1942, Greece, Athens kind of specifically, but Greece in general, will become like akin to hell on earth. And this next paragraph I'm going to read is from, again, one of my favorite books and a great source we use, Inside Hitler's Greece by Mark Mazower. And quote, a woman who had been walking with her two undernourished children through central Athens collapsed in the street, leaving the children to cry. Demobbed Greek servicemen, veterans of the Albanian campaign, lay in doorways or propped up against walls. One freezing December evening, a young man collapsed in Skoufas Street. Get up, or you're done for, someone said to him. My God, why have you brought me to such a state, the young man whispered. Why am I not at home, instead of crawling like a dog through the streets at night? Why my God? What did I do to you? And the guy was a conscript from the island of Zakynthos, which is like one of many people. So like that's the thing too. Like a lot of these guys, when they were surrendered up in Epirus, up by the Albanian front, they were from all around Greece, right? Islands, wherever, right? They
Right.
had to fucking find a way home and physically walk home, And some of these people, where would they end up? Athens, because like it's kind of like all roads. The easiest way to get to a big metropolitan area, it's Athens is like the one place everyone's going and stuff like that. And it's a big population center. So a lot of these people are from all types of different places, and they just end up in Athens, which sucks. It's like so shitty because you end up in a foreign place and you're starving and freezing to death.
Yeah. And good luck getting a boat home because they're all conscripted to the service of the
Right.
German army
Right.
now.
Right.
Yeah,
There's no way.
no way out.
And hunger, by the way, does more than just slowly kill you, right? It can drive you insane. And many people were literally going insane. There are reports by German military attaches stationed in Athens at the time, and testimonies by mothers who had watched their children starve to death in front of them. There's all types of stories, people being paralyzed with fear and anxiety and depression, other people submitting to pure hedonism, a kind of, we're all going to die anyways type attitude, right? People hallucinating and that kind of thing. So, I mean, this is what starvation can really do to you.
I need cite
And
nothing further than the Donner Party. Like the Donner Party is all you need,
I'm not
really.
that
Think about.
familiar, honestly. Aside from when they eat each other, that's all I know about.
Oh
I mean, I know
yeah,
they
but there was a
crashed.
lot of
They got stuck
insanity
in.
that led to bad decisions that led to that, obviously. I mean, that's kind of where you get, or any of those like old-timey pioneer tales, if anybody's familiar with those.
Yes,
There are
or
a
the
lot of
Black
them.
Plague,
Oh yes. Oh yes, just with
Mask
starvation.
of the Black Death. What was it? What's this Edgar Allan Poe thing where they all lock themselves, or the rich people lock themselves in a castle? You know what I'm talking
Oh,
about? They all locked themselves in a
Follow the
castle
House of
during the.
Usher,
No, that's a close
The
one.
Cask of
That's creepy too.
Amontillado,
That might
The
be
Cask
it.
of
And some
Amontillado,
guy,
Mask
some
of the
dude
Red
shows
Death,
up at the party.
Mask of the
Mask of the
Red
Red
Death.
Death. That's it. They're all at the party, and
I'm
then the
just
dude shows
saying,
up.
Edgar Allan. Yes,
But yeah, it's
yes,
Edgar Allan Poe. No,
that's
you're right though. Yeah, it reminds me of that, right? Like hedonism, right? Like people just doing whatever is, fuck it, gonna die, So
right. Exactly.
yeah,
It's Bacchus, but in a bad way.
right, right. Bacchus, but in the bad way. Oh man, so carts would come every morning to pick up the corpses off the streets, women, men, young and old, children, who then would in many cases be dropped off at mass graves, where, if a priest was present, would bless the bodies in mass. Eventually, the carts were not guaranteed to come regularly, and the corpses were left in the streets to freeze. You get the idea. It's quite literally hellish. And just to point out that winter proved especially harsh by Athenian standards. It wasn't just like a normal winter. It was a colder than usual winter. So, as word got out to the Greek government in exile, headed by the king, of course, and the populations of those in the UK and the USA became privy to the suffering and mass dying in Greece, public pressure started to build in favor of lifting the blockade. This pressure was especially applied by the diasporic lobby in the USA and, of course, by King George and Prime Minister Tsouderos, who were hearing, of the hell their people were enduring. And while it was considered, the British were reluctant, as at the time the blockade was one of the few tools or weapons, if you will, the Allies could throw against the Axis powers in Greece. Even the Vatican appealed to the British in September and October of 41, but also were unable to change the British mind, mostly because the British considered the Vatican as working on behalf of the Italian government.
I was going to say
Which, I
that's
mean,
fucking rich.
I know, right? Coming from
Right.
the Vatican.
Not just the Italian government, but on behalf of the German one too, if you do your homework, folks.
Oh, yeah, dude, forget about it.
Yeah.
The role the Catholic Church played in the Holocaust and stuff
I
like
always
that.
think of
And
that Rick and Morty quote when it's like, I'll tell you for money. Like when the global economy is collapsing, that's literally the Vatican. I'll tell you
yeah,
for money.
yeah. Oh, yeah, the secrets of the Vatican, which they've still never, I don't think they've admitted or apologized for to this day or acknowledged
No,
at all.
never will. Never will.
I'm,
Don't anybody
very
hold your
sure they
breath.
have not. Yeah,
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 no.
yeah. Standard. So, so of course, the Allies, who didn't want to give up their only way of what they thought was hurting the Germans, tried to find a workaround, and they got the idea of using Turkey to deliver food aid. And this might seem a bit odd, as Turkey is firmly out of the conflict, but it makes sense because Turkey itself was within the zone being blockaded. So, in other words, they could deliver food without breaking the blockade because Turkey's right next door, right? So, like, you get that, right? It's like literally there's a blockade zone, yada yada. So the gears
Right.
and mechanisms were set in motion to make that happen. So the arrangement itself, just full disclosure, it was not sponsored or exactly co-opted even by the Turkish government, which begs the question, if it wasn't the Turkish government who would facilitate the aid, then who, right? Well, it was the Greek War Relief Association of the USA, which funneled the money through London to Turkey, and then with the help of the Hellenic Union of Constantinopolitans, which were like a local club of Greeks in Constantinople, they chartered a Turkish steamship called the Kurtulus, in my impeccable Turkish, and the International Red Cross had also been commissioned to supervise the shipments. So the arrangement was supposed to deliver like 50,000 tons of grain, an amount that like could have made a bit of a difference. But instead, between October of 1941 and January of 1942, only around 7,000 tons were shipped to Greece before like the ship was sunk. There was another ship, the Duplupinar, named after, Dupluminar. Lupinar, it was named after the famous battle in the Asia Minor campaign. The Greeks lost, and then like from there, everything went sideways. But by August 1942, the entire arrangement was called off by the new Turkish government, whose foreign minister was known for being especially like pro-German, even for Turkey at the time, who we know had already signed a treaty of friendship with the Nazis. As we'll see, though, the British will relent, and in mid-February of 1942, right when the misery and starvation was at its peak, they'll come to like a compromise or whatever. The Brits, Italians, and Germans, with some help from the Vatican, who communicated with the Nazis, created a framework and started to hash out the details of this deal. In sum, the same International Red Cross mission that helped with the shipments from Turkey was used. Additional ration cards were issued to civilians who could use them to help receive grain shipments and stuff like that. Were issued, but the actual grain itself wouldn't leave from Canada, that's where it was coming from, until 1942, August of 1942. So, like, the current suffering would continue for now. But at least the following winter of 42, 43 wouldn't be nearly as bad. Still bad, with significantly increased mortality rates. But, as historian Mark Mazower points out in his book, again, Inside Hitler's Greece, couldn't say this book enough, at the peak of the mass suffering, the spread between deaths and births peaked at about 7-1, right? So, which is insane. When the commission started regular deliveries of grain, that number dropped to around 3-1. Even so, births would not exceed deaths until mid 1943.
Yeah, and so again,
Brutal.
the the Red Cross is not going to get on trying that again until it's got the full coverage of an actually militarized United States, which doesn't happen until 42, even though those shipments are being facilitated by the British. The British don't have the resources. It's important to say that again.
Yeah,
They had to
people forget
block
that a lot. Yeah.
they had to blockade Greece because, man, they are at their absolute wits' end. So it's going to have to rely on American involvement, and none of that's going to happen until 42. And
Yeah.
so then on
People
top of
discount
that,
that a lot.
people discount that. They don't think about that. They think of the British Empire at this point. The reality is the British Empire is already crumbling, or none of
Yeah.
this would have happened. On top of that, we also have to look at, it's really interesting to me looking at that 7-1 rate and that 3-1 rate, because again, the Germans don't want to have to take care of a Greek population. So this works very much in their favor, like in terms of occupation, that, oh, we've got only so many people and they'll find their food. And it's
Yeah.
literally the most cruel way of weeding down a population.
Right.
They
Of making
couldn't
it
even
easier for
be
yourself. It's less
right. They
people.
couldn't even they couldn't even be bothered with mass extermination. That's like
Yeah.
particularly horrific. God, these people.
Yeah.
Ooh. Guys,
Yeah.
fascism's bad. Please
So
remember,
bad.
fascism's bad.
So bad. So bad. And it's like, that's the thing. It's just like you're saying, though, but it's just so coldly calculated. If I can occupy a country of 5 million or occupy a country of 3.5 million, it's easier to occupy a country of 3.5 million. It's just
Yeah,
common sense. It's just math. It's nothing
it's
personal.
literally. Yeah, it's not. It's
I mean, when you're a
say
Nazi, it's
what you
nothing
will,
personal,
but
obviously.
this literally draws on like why we have to be aware in the United States. It's almost Robert S. McNamara math, going
Oh,
into,
in fog of war
yeah,
type stuff. Yeah. Yeah.
fog of war type stuff. It's just war math.
It's true. Yeah. Yeah. So, like, by the end of 1942, due to a combination of the blockade being lifted and some new economic measures, inflation would slow down a bit, and some meat could even be seen in butcher shops. So it gets a little bit better. In Greek history, this winter is very well known. Honestly, if you talk to like grandparents and stuff like that, along with the whole occupation, of course, but this winter especially, um, yeah, I mean, you'll hear stories of grandparents living off nothing but grass or bread and ouzo, stuff like that. Just literally anything that has calories or sugar in it to stop you from dying. To this day, the death toll from this mass starvation is hazy. But when we put the numbers together from the summer of 1941 to the start of grain being regularly delivered in the summer of 1942, there were somewhere between 250,000 to 400,000 deaths, with somewhere around 50,000 dying, again, just in Athens and Piraeus area alone. So, like, just a basic look at the math, and we have somewhere between 4.25 to 5% of the pre-war population effectively starved to death. And, like, also, let's not forget about the opportunity costs of having a declining birth rate does, like we talked about earlier, for almost like 2 full years. Like, deaths
Hmm.
would exceed births. And when factoring this in and the detrimental effect that this had on post-war population in Greece, it could even be higher if you calculate like that swing, right? So, yeah, this is why people still, some Greeks to this day hate Germany, like literally. I mean, they burned my mom's village down.
Yeah, you can't be surprised. You ask anybody on the continent every once in a while, there's somebody old enough to really hate the Germans. Like, it's just the
Yes,
way it goes.
exactly. And the British, I feel like, you know what I mean?
Oh, there are plenty of people old enough on any continent to really hate the
Right,
British,
around
but
the
that's
world.
not what we're talking about here.
Funny,
Ah,
funny story. So, my mom was born after the war, but the village she was burned in was burned down by the Germans. It's actually in the book Logic of Violence by Stathis Kalivas. It's actually in that book, which is in the basin of Argos or whatever, that area right around Argos Nemea.
yeah, I
So
started
my great
reading that thanks to you. That's just a
Oh, you
fun
looked into
read.
it?
Yeah,
I've
what a
tried.
fun
It's
read.
really technical. I try to read it and like I got through a lot of it. And I got through some of it, whatever. But it's really technical. You know what I mean? It's like very
Oh, I
quantitative
don't
and
mean
stuff
for
and
the
that kind of stuff.
technical. I mean for just like the numbers of devastation. It's just like,
Oh yeah. He
right?
he
It's
does a
so
really
metal.
dude, it's so metal and it's so statistical. It's like in this village, 15 civilians were killed, discriminate death, indiscriminate death, organized violence, and he just literally every village, 10 civilians killed here, 19 civilians killed here. I mean, it's a hell of a case study.
But
It's a
if
hell of
you
a case
start
study.
doing the statistical math throughout the entire book, it's just
Oh yeah.
super metal. Like, God,
it's it's
it
dense.
breaks down how truly horrific like things would be for a very long time in Greece.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. So like my great grandfather, um when German tourists would come and they'd be around like a because all throughout Greece, anywhere you drive, you'll see monuments to like massacres and stuff everywhere, honestly, all throughout Greece. So whenever there would be German tourists and they'd be around one of these monuments and my great grandpa was there, he'd go, you, and he'd point to the German tourists and he'd go, you, German, you, and he'd point. And my mom would be like, "Oh my god, this is so embarrassing!" Like, don't my grandma would be like, "Don't do that! Stop it! Just leave them alone!" Like, It's like Jesus. So yeah, that's why this is the kind of stuff, and which we're just getting started with, right? Like all the rest of the stuff that goes through the resistance and everything else aside,
Oh,
like literally this winter alone is like left such a bad, as it would, right?
but this is what kicks off, and this is why it's
Right.
important to talk about. This is what starts the
This is what's
reckoning
really
that would
transformed
continue.
society.
Yes.
Exactly. So we'll get back to it. All right. So if you're like quick to attribute this unfortunate happening to mismanagement, aside from touching on that quote from Goering earlier that we talked about not letting a single German starve, I found some other really insane stuff, a directive actually, that I thought was relevant to this conversation. The Hunger Plan was a directive presented at the Berlin Conference in May of 1941. Not to be confused with the Hunger Games, Jess. The Hunger Plan.
It's not far
And
off, though.
I'll have
It's
you
just
know. Go ahead.
the Germans are just like far more hardcore parkour because they're going to do it across societies and people groups instead of like
Right.
9 competitors and
Exactly.
that's
What should we
as
call
far
it,
as they're
Goering? I don't
concerned.
know. How about the Hunger Plan? Sounds like a winner to me. It
They're
was.
so on the nose naming shit though in Germany. It
Oh,
does
yeah.
really make me laugh.
Oh, yeah. So it was ratified, I'll have you know, by all secretaries of ministries present at the conference, which was meant to be like a roadmap of sorts of how to feed the army, which was now entering the third year of war. The protocol expected, and quote, zillions, namely 20 to 30 million deaths from starvation, end quote. Zillions. I'm sorry.
Whoever
I
it
just think
has to
that's
be,
hilarious.
we just love killing. Whoever it has to be, let's just get after
How
it
many
then,
you think?
boys.
About 20, maybe 20 to 30 million around.
But we're willing to go to the zillions. We're
Yeah,
willing
we're
to take
willing
it
to go
to
to zillions.
mhm.
Million, billions, zillions. That's it.
We'll account for births that haven't happened yet, and we plan on them starving almost
Yeah,
immediately.
got to get those numbers up, right?
Right? Yeah,
So
that was literally. Ugh.
the directive continued, and quote, one, the war can only be continued if all armed forces are fed by Russia in the third year of war. Two, there is no doubt that as a result, many millions of people will be starved to death if we take out of the country the things that are necessary for us, end quote. Um, yeah, and that is why we should never give Nazis the benefit of the doubt, lest you rightly be confused for a Nazi. I lament the fact I even have to state this, but we are students of history, or like to call ourselves students of history, maybe.
Right.
So we do have to state this.
That's we do have to state it. It's very much in the paperwork. Hyper nationalism means you don't take from the nation state, but you really rob from. Well, you rob from the poor and the rich the world over.
Yeah,
That's kind of the point.
right. To feed your
Also,
death cult.
it's just so laughable that they thought the Russian state could maintain them.
I
That's my
know it
favorite
is.
part of
It
that
is
joke.
hindsight,
It's my
right?
absolute favorite part of that joke. Okay.
I
Okay.
know.
There
It's.
again, they did research about all the most occult nonsense on earth, but did not bother to look into Russian history for like half a fucking second. Not even half a
Hey, how big
second.
is this place?
Uh huh. 1/6 of the earth. I feel like it's full of highly, like, that's got to be super a lot of farmland, and I bet everybody's on it, right? Those serfs are just
right,
doing the
right,
work.
right. It's not as big as it looks because it's like due to the Mercator projection, so it's really not a big deal. It's actually like half that
Right.
size.
Wait, what's a Bolshevik? Something happened in 1917? Don't worry about it. We're still living in czarist culture. So,
yeah,
to each man his
absolutely.
own. That's the most
So,
laughable part about it, but whatever.
I mean, yeah, and the fact that they were just so like planned out, I
Blase.
found like yeah, like dude, like when I read that, I was like, holy fucking shit, this is crazy. This is insane. This is insane. It was no, that's something different. Yeah, I was thinking the Bloom chaos theory. That's another thing. Walter
That's
Bloom.
another thing. It's
That's
a whole
that's
different thing.
I got into a black hole with that. I was like, holy shit, this is crazy. I was like, this is insane. It's like this is
That's a
bonkers. This is
whole,
bonkers.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Even so, in the face of impossible odds, human beings can at times find an uncanny resilience. They don't know what else to chalk it up to other than the human instinct to survive and thus resist. Both of these instincts will manifest themselves into what will become, at its peak, one of the strongest resistance movements in Europe. And with a single word, will raise up feelings of pride, hope, joy, and absolute dread into Greeks and non Greeks alike. Antarctico, or the rebels, the guerrillas. That's it for today. Please join us next time as we're introduced to the many colors and shades of the resistance movements of Greece. Take care.
Σε αγαπούσα, ήσουν η αδυναμία.